In your second book, The Recovery Click, you interviewed people who were kind of like going through such situations, right? What is one thing that you learned from interacting with people after you've gone through this process already?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people in any addiction or like struggling with mental health,
Mm,
there's a lot of black and white thinking. People
mm,
think recovery has to look this way, I have to do it this way, and the outcome has to be this. When in reality, everyone's click and
yeah.
everyone's reason to recover and get help
Mm,
is very different.
yeah.
And I just feel like that's important because some people may not know why they want to recover or
Mm,
why they have to recover. And I feel like the recovery click just shows it doesn't matter if you're recovering for your dog or you're
yeah.
recovering because you don't want to be sick
Mm,
anymore. Every reason is powerful.
mm,
And it was so cool to just like put them all together and just see why we should be better for ourselves and
mm,
find a new purpose and a new way of living. And um, while they were all similar in a way, they were all
yeah.
so different. And it was
Yeah.
so cool to just hear like, it doesn't have to be I need to go to treatment and I need to eat this many meals and I'll
Mm,
be completely healed
yeah.
and better. So really tuning into why you want to be better, who you
Mm.
want to become, and why it's so good to be like healthy in every way. I just feel like that was super cool to look at.
Did you have like any challenges interacting with people to kind of like see their point of view and stuff like that?
I feel like the most challenging thing with writing my second book was finding the people.
Mm.
I really wanted to get a diverse group of people,
Mm.
different genders, different ages, people from around the world. So I feel like having that and then also tying it into a whole book was the most
Mm.
challenging part. So I have the interviews. Now,
Mhm.
how can I turn it into advice that people
Mhm.
can walk away with
Mm.
and live with? And so that's why I think it took me like the
Mm.
2 years, is because I was like, things are going to come to me and I'm going to like figure out the pieces
Mm.
for this to become a book. But I have my interviews, I have the advice. Now, how can I tie it together?
Mm.
And in the end, it just, again, made sense. It was like,
Yeah.
this is what it's supposed to be. This is the advice people are supposed to take out and walk with. And
Mhm.
again, through the process, even I learned things.
Mhm.
So it was cool. Like, I had pieces from high school
Mm.
that I took with me, and then pieces from college that I got
Mm.
to add to the book. And so, really combining everything and the stories was super cool. And then my therapeutic assistants from treatment were able to write what it was like seeing people's recovery clips.
Mm.
So I was like, that's cool because you get different point of views, not just from people who struggled with eating disorders, but people who saw people struggling with
Yeah.
eating disorders.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very cool.
Wow. That's so good. In your second book, right, you mentioned something regarding your faith, and here's some lines that I picked out. You said, "When I said it's impossible, God said all things are possible. When I said I can't do it, God reminded me you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you," right? So touching on your faith, how has your faith played a role in your recovery and then you also publishing books?
I feel like going into treatment, I wasn't sure if I didn't believe in God or I was just mad at God. And I was in this place where I was like, I can't do this. I
Mm.
can't recover. Why do I have to deal with this? If God was real, like, why would I be going through an eating disorder and
Mm.
depression and all the things? And so when I started growing my faith and really tuning into Jeremiah 29:11, which
Mm.
is how he has plans for us, I started to remember, like, this isn't impossible. Recovery
Mm.
isn't impossible. I have all these people I've seen go through recovery. Um, and so really sitting and being in, like, my Bible
Mm.
and really listening to God's words versus the devil's,
Yeah.
because I feel like a part of me forgot, like, there is the devil. There is going to
Mm.
be the devil feeding into my mind saying, you can't do this. You'll never recover. You'll never get out of treatment. Like, this is going to be a part of your life
Yeah.
forever. But sitting and remembering, God says all things are possible.
Mm.
Um, and that's kind of one of the things we learn in treatment. It's called opposite action.
Mm.
So reframing our thoughts, instead of me being like, I can't do this, I can say, all things are possible, or my body is disgusting. It's like my body does great things. My body's a temple.
Temple of God, yeah.
And I feel like putting that in my books, not only is it helping people recover, but it's spreading the gospel. And obviously that's God's calling for us. That's what we're called to do.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it was really important that, okay, if people are finding their purpose in what they look like, let's maybe help them find their purpose in like God's word, and what he tells us. And so it's cool to have like the professional like research parts in my book, but also what God tells us. Even in the Bible it says like, do not worry about what you eat or drink, or like the clothes you wear.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to think like God said that. He said don't worry about what you eat or drink. So why are we so focused about what we're putting into our body? And so sharing that, I just feel like is amazing, because some people don't know God, or don't know what the Bible says that about eating disorders or recovery, and sharing that I feel like has been so special and has helped me grow in my faith. So
Yeah,
that's what I say about that.
that's beautiful. You know, as you mentioned, who we are doesn't necessarily revolve around what we look like, right? That's just a tiny portion of it. We are somebody before we gain this body, right? We were formed in the image of God. So, you know, touching on this thing once more, if someone is kind of like in a situation like you were in, or they are going through something, and then it clicks to them again as you went through, that, oh, if God is alive, if God kind of like sees me, watches everything that I'm going through, how is it that I'm going through this? How is it that I'm in this tight corner, I'm in this kind of like tough moment in my life? What is one message that you would share with that person?
I feel like when it comes to that, a big thing I share is Jeremiah 29:11. And it's, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And I believe that some things we go to are meant for his plan for us. So for example, if I never went through dealing with my eating disorder, I would have never published a book. I would have never been in school right now to be an eating disorder therapist, just because I wouldn't have known what it was like to go through that. Again, I was very uneducated. So I feel like, yes, we go through hard things, but sometimes that's a part of our plan. And in the end, his plans for us are meant for good, not for evil. They're plans to prosper us and be a part of our future. So instead of me looking at it like, God, why me? Why'd I go through this? I can be like, okay, God, like, this is why I went through that, to share my story, to help other people. And in the end, it was a way for me to share the gospel. And he gives us gifts, and I feel like sharing my story was one of my gifts. So
That's powerful.
Yeah.
You know, before we came here, I was touching on the idea that the human being, I see it to be a complex machine of spirit, soul, and body, right? And so you kind of like going through all these phases. If you are given the opportunity to kind of rank the human being, like the most important parts and which parts to focus on, from the spirit to the soul to the body, how will you rank it? What will be like the order for you?
I love that you asked that question, because I feel like that's a good question. But I was talking about, like, I feel like spirit is number one, just because you can't have the other two without the spirit. And the Spirit of God is just so powerful. And I feel like it's obviously always with you. And if you really sit and listen, okay, this is what God's calling me to do. This is what he's saying. This is what the Holy Spirit is telling me to do. That is so important to guide your soul, to guide your body, to get you going every day. And that's really what I had to listen to, was the Spirit. What is God telling me?
True.
And in the end, that's what guided my soul to where I am now, and that's what guided my body to, you know, live every day and get up. And so I feel like for me it would just be 1 spirit, 2 soul, 3 body, because you can't have the other two without the Spirit.
Wow. That's so beautiful, and I totally agree with that. It's kind of like floating in this order, from your spirit to your soul to your body, right? How, you know, kind of when you connect with the Spirit of God, you translate the virtues, the fruit of the Spirit, and then it comes into your soul, and then you can, you know, do something positive in the world through the body. So it kind of like flows in that direction.
I was also gonna ask you, like, how would you think those three like tie into like this podcast and what you're doing with Brink and everything like that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, honestly. So, you know, as I when you talked about body and how you went through eating disorder and stuff like that, we know that as Christians, our body is the temple of God, right? And then anything that you get, any idea, anything that you want to implement, you can't accomplish it if you are not in this body, right? So even though we are to take care of them so that we can execute from the spirit whatever you have, because like sometimes the ideas, the quickenings, the things that you get in your head, like even regarding your 721 challenge,
Yeah.
the positive thoughts that you come, they drop in your spirit and then it translates to your soul. You give meaning to it and then it applies to your body. So as you are saying it, your emotion, your will, everything is connected. And then your body begins to act in that kind of order. So regarding this podcast, I think as human beings, we need to take care of the tripartite, from the spirit to the soul to the body. We need to make sure we take care of it. And this is not something that's kind of like related to Christianity or something regarding faith. As human beings, our spirits needs to be conserved and preserved, and make sure we don't let it get contaminated in a way. And then the soul too, and then the body, it flows in that order, so that whatever you need to do, which is purpose, as we talk about on this podcast, you can translate it from your spirit. That's what you have within. That's what you've been created and endowed with, the beautiful treasure that you have. Yours might be writing, mine might be maybe speaking or something like that. So you need to translate it to your soul, and the soul is where your emotion, your will, your intelligence comes in. So you need to educate yourself. And that's what you explained so beautifully regarding how when you walked through the recovery process, you were kind of like exposed to new things about eating disorder and other things, and then you realize you learned more, right? So that's the soulish aspect. And then the body, you need to take care of it, maybe exercising, going to the gym and other stuff, but you make sure whatever you have in the soul, whatever you've learned, you put it to practicality, which is like the important thing. And so, yeah, they all come together. There is kind of like a fine line in between where they come together for you to fulfill purpose. You can't leave any one of them out. Yeah. And that's a very beautiful question.
I love that.
Yeah. In your second book, right, the dedication reads like this. So let me read it to you. To the treatment therapist who doubted my journey, you said I'll be back in few months. Yet, here I am, over 2 years into recovery, writing my second book and thriving. This book is dedicated to you and everyone else who said I couldn't do it. What did you mean by that? Yeah. Can you give me like the backstory of everything? Yeah.
So definitely long dedication. I feel like not a normal dedication in books. But going through my experience in treatment, I had a therapist who challenged a lot of the things I did and really didn't believe in me. Like anything I would do, she'd be like, nope, you're just letting your eating disorder win. Like you're just going to be back here. You're never going to be able to get out of treatment. And a part of me wanted to believe that, but I was also like, I can't, like, I've come so far. Like, I can't believe, like, what she's saying. I know I can do this, especially since I have come so far. And it was my last day of treatment. I was leaving, and I was walking down the steps. It was the last time I was going to be in this treatment facility. And my therapist was talking to my mom, and she was like, just know she's going to be back here in a few months. Like, she didn't do well. Like, she's just going to be back here. I don't think she's actually recovered. Like, she's just lying. All these things. And so a lot of people, I think, would have taken that and believed it. But I took it as a way to, like, keep going. Like, fuel to the fire almost. I was like, I can't prove her, like, right. Like, I got to do well. And so I got out of treatment, and every time I was like, I can't do this anymore, I would remember, like, no, I can't end back up in treatment. And I ended up working on my book, publishing it, and then I was part of magazines and other podcasts, and now eventually publishing my second book. And it's crazy. Again, I feel like it ties into the 721 challenge. You
Mm.
even have other people
Yeah,
telling you negative
exactly.
things.
That's what I
Yeah.
was thinking about. That sometimes it's not that you are telling yourself the negative
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? It's the people around
Yeah.
you. They are kind of like feeding you with this negative stuff. And so, like, in this situation particularly, you couldn't kind of get out of the situation
Mm-hmm.
because this is your therapist.
Yeah.
That person is supposed to help you.
Right.
But the person was feeding you with the wrong stuff.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah. Um, I feel like again it's reframing your thoughts.
Mm.
So while I could have believed what she was saying and been like, "You're right, I'm gonna end up back in treatment," I told
Mm.
myself, "No, I got this. I can do hard things."
Yeah.
Um, and going through that has led me to want to be an eating disorder
Mm.
therapist and one that's not like that.
Mm.
And that's why I kind of wanted to dedicate my second
Wow.
book, was just because not only do we talk about the 721 challenge, but then I also talked about wanting to be an eating
Mm.
disorder therapist. And so I carry that with me every day, is like, this is God's plan for me. This is
Mm.
what I want to do. I can do hard things.
Yeah.
I've come so far.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people in my life who
Mm.
try to say you can't do this or you're going to impact where you are.
Yeah.
And that's where I sit and I remember, no, I can do
You
this.
can do this.
I'm talented. This is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And it's tuning in to the 721 challenge. So I feel like it
Mm.
all ties together, and that's what really keeps me going every day.
Mm. All right. So, if someone is like in a situation, sometimes it's not people who kind of doubt you or say negative things to you. It's kind of like the circumstance that you are in
Mhm.
kind of depicts a negative energy.
Yeah.
So, you kind of feel like, oh, based on what I've gone through and where I am and what I've seen in life, I can't do this, or my circumstance is dictating to me that this is impossible, right? What is one message that you can share with such person if they are going through like a tough time, whether a person is telling them they can't do something or circumstances are showing them that they can't do something? What would be your message, because you've lived it?
Yeah. I feel like is finding things to be proud of, even
Mhm.
if it's something small.
Mhm.
A lot of the times I like to write out like things I'm proud of myself, especially in the early stages of recovery.
Mhm.
So whether that was something so small like getting up and making my
Mm.
bed, I could find something to be proud of. So whenever someone was like, you can't do it, I could be like, yes, I can. Even if it's the slightest thing to be proud of,
Mm.
that's something I want to share to others. Is it's okay to be proud of the small things and of course be proud of the big things, but just writing that out and look
Mm.
at the things that you have done in your life and that you
Mm.
still can do.
Mm.
And don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Wow.
Like, if you're proud of something, be proud
Be
of that.
proud of it.
And I feel like that's so important that people forget,
Yeah.
is we set these standards for ourselves and
Mhm.
we're like, we have to attain this and we have to do certain things in our life to be proud of. In
Mhm.
reality, like, you can be proud of anything you want, and
Mm.
I feel like other people should know that too.
Yeah, that's powerful. So I think every person watching this will definitely ask this question. Since you're an author, how do you write a book?
It's a great question.
Mhm.
I feel like the first thing above all is your mission.
Mm.
Whether you're writing a fiction book, a nonfiction book,
Nonfiction, yeah.
memoir, whatever, like, what's your mission? What are you trying to get out of it?
Mhm.
Who are you trying to reach? So for me, I knew my mission. I knew who I wanted to reach. And then there's so many different routes to
Mm,
publishing a book. For me, I did like self-publishing. So I wrote my book, and then I knew my mission. I knew my audience. I knew what I was trying to get out of it.
Mm.
You then go through the editing process, getting your book, like all the edits done,
Mm.
and your page layout. And then after that, you go to the cover work. So I found a cover person. You go back and forth designing it, which is super fun because it's like your imagination.
Yeah,
Like, it's a
kind
great
of like,
opportunity.
yeah, it's so beautiful.
It brings the book to life,
Yeah.
I feel like. And so you go through that, and then I personally had people read my book. So I was like, okay, let me have different audiences read it and see what
Mm.
they think about it.
Mm.
And then after that, you go to uploading your book,
Mm.
and I went through Amazon self-publishing. So I uploaded it, you lay out exactly how you want it to look, and then you set a publication date. Again, optional, but I did a book signing party just
Mm.
to get the word out there. And there's truly endless routes you can go publishing a book, but I feel like to anyone who wants to share their story, publish a book, is what's your mission and what's your audience and what you're trying to get out of it. And I feel like that's the biggest thing is anyone could write a book. Everyone tells me, like, I could never do that. And I'm just like, but you can. If you have a mission, you have an audience, there you go. You could definitely write a book.
Wow, that's powerful. You need a mission, and that mission dictates your audience, and then you continue further with the process. Before we kind of like conclude everything, I want us to, circle back on the 721 challenge, right? So let's say I wake up this morning, and I need 7 words, positive words, to kind of like cancel a negative thought or something like that. What are some words that you personally would say to yourself when you wake up?
I love that you said that because, again, there's so many things, and sometimes I have to think about, okay, what would I tell my friends? So it would just mean, like, it could be, I am kind, I am beautiful, I am smart, I am talented, I like my hair, I have beautiful eyes, I can do hard things, and the list goes on and on. It could be something you're good at. If you're like, I'm good at writing, I'm good at playing volleyball, I'm a good friend. So it really can be anything you want, which I think is just so powerful because a lot of people think, oh, I need to look in the mirror and talk about how amazing I am. But in reality, it's just like, okay, what are you good at? What are the hard things you can do? And I think that's really special is just people think like, oh, it has to be like, I'm kind, I'm strong on this. But it's like, what are you good at? What did you do today that was positive and got you up? So the list is honestly endless.
So like 7 positive things 3 times a day, right?
Yep.
And it leads up to 21. Yep. That's so powerful. It's good having you on the podcast.
Thank
so
you.
If people want to get your books or get to follow you on social media, how do they get to do that?
So I have an Instagram account that's all like book related, and that's Katelyn's, so KATELYNS .daily.do's. So all my book stuff, I have my website on there, and so if you go to the website, you can go to Amazon to find both my books, and keep up with everything I'm doing on there.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
Thank
you so much once again for making it, and it's an honor having you, and I hope whatever we share today will help a lot of people, come out of whatever addiction or process or situation that they are in and begin to live meaningful and purposeful lives. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.